Okay, so we're starting chapter 13 in Joshua. It's the next half of the book. They've had the big war, big battles. They're still going to fight, but now they're going to fight as tribes for their land. But the next several chapters are going to be about dividing the land between the tribes. So, the verses we can read, we will read. Like I said, we are not going to read the whole list of big names, and so because I don't want to see you having to struggle over names, and you won't be able to concentrate. But over and over again, I'm going to say these names. If you were there, these names are vital to you. They're important to you. So they are important names. Okay. We're not saying they're not important. We're just not going to struggle with them. Okay, so that's okay. We're in Joshua 13. So I am going to start with verse 1 since
just verse 1.
Just verse 1.
Okay. Now Joshua was old and advanced in years, and the Lord said to him, "You are old and advanced in years, and there remains much land to possess."
Do you think he was old and advanced in years?
I think so. There's a point there.
Twice.
So at this point, they think he was between 90 and 95 years old.
Wow.
That's old and advanced.
Yeah.
He will live to 110. So he still has a ways to go. But God is not done with him yet. Kind of like Pastor Tracy's sermon last week. If God calls you to something, you're called to something. Now, he may change your calling. Like, there is no retiring from being a Christian.
No.
Your calling may change from being on the floor with toddlers to being a prayer warrior. Mm-hmm. I don't care how old you are. You can be a prayer warrior. There's things you can do, and God is not done with you yet. He was not done with Joshua. There's still land to conquer. Now they've conquered, remember, the big cities. But there's a lot more to Israel than those big cities. It's time to defeat the smaller groups of Canaanites. So what the land was to Israel, the world is to us. We are to go out and conquer. Not in the same way. We're not to go take swords, but we're to take God's word and conquer the world. So more names, more places. Again, we are not going to read all those because I don't want to see you struggling to try to pronounce them and not understand what they're meaning anyway. So these lists may seem really boring, but again, if you're an Israelite, these lists are the most exciting things in the world to you right now. It's like if God were to say, I'm gonna give you this piece of land, and here's the borders. You really care about where those borders are. So this first section is about where the borders of Israel are going to be, and you can bet they care. Actually, this first section, the first part of verse 2 says, "This is the land that yet remains." So this is the land they have yet to conquer. And then we get a list of places. A lot of what they list are, they talk about the Philistines a lot. They are to conquer the Philistines. Now, they don't do a really good job of conquering all the Philistines. We've talked about that before because David is going to fight a Philistine. Goliath is a Philistine. If they had wiped out all the Philistines, there would have been no Goliath. So they didn't quite do everything they were supposed to do. But God says in verse 6, "I myself will drive them out." He is still heading these little battles. So what area still needs to be conquered is basically the Philistia, where the Philistines live, Phoenicia, which is kind of the coastal region, and Lebanon, northern Israel. So the Philistines originally came from Greece. They were not original Canaanites. They came as mercenaries to attack the Egyptians. But they lost. But they didn't want to go back to Crete, so they just settled on the Canaanite coast.
So Lebanon should be under the Israelis?
Lebanon should have been part of Israel. So these Philistines weren't exactly like the Canaanites, but boy, they were just as evil. They had a different God, but they sacrificed people to their God. They're going to harass the Israelites through the period of the Judges and the reign of Saul. David is the one that's going to finally conquer them. So after they take that area of land that's in this list, they can inhabit the land. And again, God has been with Joshua. He is going to continue to be with the tribes as they go forward, as long as they look to him. If they try to do things on their own, they're not going to succeed. And in Judges, we're going to see there's places they didn't conquer. Each tribe, as they get their land, they are to go in and take over the land. They are to conquer the little towns. This gives them personal responsibility for what they own. No more national war, it's little battles. Okay, so now it's time to actually start dividing. They're starting with the land that's on the other side of the Jordan. Now, this has actually been done under Moses. Now, when you look through the names that are in there from verse 8 through 13, and any other time, when you see the name Baal or Ashtoreth, that's the name of their god. Baal means God to them. So anything named Baal, something means God, honoring their false god. And again, these are evil gods that they worship. Well, the gods aren't real at all, but they worship them by sacrificing people, especially children. So not good gods at all. And of course, we know they're false gods, which means the people are evil. Don't forget how evil these people are along the way. We think of innocent children and things like that. They are not in an innocent society. They will grow up to be as evil as their parents. Yeah. So in verse 8 it says, with the other half of the tribe of Manasseh, the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them beyond the Jordan eastward, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. And then we get their borders. So these are the 3.5 tribes on the east side of the Jordan. And notice it says Moses gave them the land. Well, God, but Moses was the leader when they got that land. It's the land they went through and they conquered on the way. It previously belonged to King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan. But in here it says it's an inheritance from God. It was a gift from God. Yes, they had to go in and fight for it, but they would not have won without God. God gave that to them. Verse 13, it says, yet the people of Israel did not drive out the Geshurites or the Maachites, but Geshur and Maachath dwell in the midst of Israel to this day. That's really sad that they didn't do that, because they're going to cause problems. Now, Geshur seems to have integrated into Israel pretty well. David later marries a princess from Geshur. And they have a son named Absalom, who's a problem kid. When Absalom starts his rebellion and runs, and then he starts his rebellion, he starts plotting, he runs to Geshur to do the plotting. So this is a land that we see is still around, still used. So they're kind of integrated, but they're still kind of separate. Janice, verse 14.
But to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance, since the offerings made by fire to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, as he promised them.
Okay, so this is talking about the Levites that are going to stay on the east side. The Levites were to spread themselves out around the country so that there would be spiritual leadership throughout the country. So this is talking about the ones that are going to be on the east side of the Jordan, but they are not going to get any land. The land is an inheritance, but their inheritance is so much better. They inherit service, being a servant of God, a special servant of God. We're going to get a lot more details about the Levites in chapter 14. So we'll kind of leave that there. Now we're actually going to get into splitting the land. Verse 15 says, and Moses gave an inheritance to the tribe of the people of Reuben according to their land, their clans. So Reuben on the other side of the Jordan. We get their territory. There's a lot of places named Baal in there. If something says Beth, that means land of. So we have Beth, Baal, Maon. So land of God, and I don't know what Maon means, but so Beth Peor means land of Peor. We see that in verse 22, we get a mention of Balaam. He was from that area that is being given. So again, this is an inheritance of the people of Reuben, going up to verse 23. And it was meant to stay in the hands of Reuben forever. They were not to sell it to anybody or give it to anybody. It was to stay with Reuben. Now it's on the east side of the Jordan. It's not even part of Israel anymore. But at that time it was part of Israel. And again in here it mentions Balaam and it mentions his death, but he's been dead for a while already. They already killed him when they conquered the princes of Midian. So it's just giving the history of the area that they're in. All these lands that they're getting, all part of the tribe of Reuben. So Reuben is responsible. They did a pretty good job of wiping things out on the east side of the Jordan, so they may not have as many battles to do, but they are to go back and make sure they have that land conquered. Then from 24 to 28, we get the inheritance of Gad. Lots of names. One of them is the area of Gilead. Gilead becomes really known for making aromatic oils and balms to cure people. There's a hymn called The Balms of Gilead. It's a healing ointments they become known for. It's interesting in this list, we don't see as many Baal places. Not sure why. It could be they didn't like to honor Baal with name places. It doesn't give an explanation why. All the other places have Baal all over the place. This one doesn't. And then verse 29 through 31, we get the half tribe of Manasseh. Verse 32 says, these are the inheritances that Moses distributed in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan east of Jericho. So this is the splitting up of the tribes on the east side. After all these tribes are split, they get to go home and get their lands. Now, Manasseh is a unique tribe. Next week I'll have a map for you that has where every tribe is. You're going to see Manasseh on this side of the Jordan and Manasseh on that side of the Jordan. They're considered a half tribe because they are descended from Joseph, one of the 12 brothers. So the other tribes are all descended from one of the 12 brothers. Joseph's tribe got split in half. So Manasseh is half, based on his 2 sons. Manasseh's one of the sons. So they're a half tribe. And again, notice that all this land on the east side of the Jordan, it says, was split up by Moses. So it's already been done because Moses is dead. He's been dead at least 7 years. Verse 33. Betty.
Back to the tribe of Levi, Moses did not give an inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he has promised to them.
Okay. So this is all historical from the people that are what's happening right now in our story. This has all already happened. All been split up. Now we're going to get to the tribes on the west side of the Jordan. So verse 1 and 2.
Where are we at?
Oh, Joshua 14, sorry.
Okay. 1 and 2. Okay, these are the areas which the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar, the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel distributed as an inheritance to them. Their inheritance was by lot, as the Lord had commanded by the hand of Moses, for the 9 tribes and the half tribe.
Okay, so yes, they are going to have to fight for this land, but it's still an inheritance from God. God is gifting this. He had promised this land back to their ancestors. So it's time to go get it. So it's time to figure out how to split up the land. We're going to get a little more detail of some of that later, but they're bringing out the big guns. They got Eleazar. He's the high priest. We think of Joshua as like the most important man in Israel. No, Eleazar is. He's the spiritual leader of the nation. We don't hear as much about him because Joshua does all the fighting and he's like the political leader, but the spiritual leader is really more important. So they bring him out, they bring Joshua out, and they bring a leader from each of the 12 tribes. Well, some of the tribes already have their land, so they're just there to watch. And Eleazar is listed first here because he has the most important role. The way you listed people was so important to them. If you were the first on the list, you were the most important. And it followed. That was the Hebrew way of things. If you ever see a list with Jesus in there, he's nowhere. He's always at the top of the list. They place a lot of importance on the order of things. Eleazar's first. So it's important to remember, Israel is not a democracy. No voting. I mean, you've seen some people that have come up in the past and say they want to run things. And how does that work out for them? They usually end up being burned up in a fire or something. This is what is called a theocracy. It is run by God. It's truly the only theocracy there ever was, where decisions are run by God before they're made. So they're going to receive this land by lot. We don't get any details of how this lot was done. We're going to see how they figured out how much land in what area and things, but the rabbis believed it happened this way. So they believed that the land on the west side of the Jordan was divided into 10 areas, and they assigned a number for each one of these areas. So they put the numbers 1 through 10 in a piece of pottery or something, and they put the names of the tribes in another piece, and they pulled out here and pulled out here, and that's what you got. They believed that, God told them to do it this way, and so God was really doing the choosing. It wasn't by chance. I mean, we think of a lottery as, gambling or something. There was no gambling to this. God chose it ahead of time. And the rabbis believe Joshua pulled from one container and Eleazar pulled from the other. But we don't see that in Scripture. So it may not have been that way. It makes sense. But it's not written down. Because not important how it happened. It happened. So once they receive this land, it is permanent. It is meant to last through eternity. Meant to. They were never to sell the land outside their tribe. They were meant to be holding that land today. But they didn't do a great job of following God's instructions, and they lost it. But if they had followed God's instruction, you could go to the land of Dan right now, and there'd be Danites right there. But that's not what happened. Okay, verse 3 through 5.
Because Moses had given inheritance to the 2.5 tribes beyond the Jordan, but he gave no inheritance among them to the Levites. The descendants of Joseph became 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. No portion of the land was given to the Levites, except cities to live in, along with pasture lands for the cattle and livestock. So the Israelites did as the Lord commanded Moses, and they divided the land.
Okay, so this is an explanation of the tribal mathematics, because human mathematics don't make sense here. Because if you have 12 tribes, but one of the tribes is split in 2, how many tribes do you have?
13.
13. God doesn't like 13. 13 is, in biblical numerology, the number of confusion.
Really?
Yeah.
Still is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
The Bible, there's so much numerology in the Bible. So 13 doesn't work. Well, and these guys could get confused, but you didn't want to set it up for confusion. Jesus didn't have 13 apostles. He had 12. 12 is the number of order and organization. You wanted order and organization. So how do you always have 12 tribes when there's actually 13 of them hanging around? Well, only 12 tribes got land. You leave the Levites out, and you got 12 tribes getting land. There's times where you include the Levites, and then you would see that Manasseh and Ephraim are thrown together as half tribes. So always 12 tribes, whatever they were talking about. Never 13.
But Manasseh got a lot of land because they had east and west.
Manasseh, well, we're going to see this lottery kind of takes into account the sizes of the tribes.
Okay.
Manasseh ends up being a huge tribe.
Speaking of numerology, because I know most of them
I've forgotten what the number 3. What is the number 3?
Trinity.
Well, yeah, Trinity, there's a lot of 3, I forgot exactly what it means, but it's a holy number. The good numbers are 3, 5, he likes odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, till you get to 12. No, 13. But 3, 5, and 7 are all godly numbers.
Yeah, Pastor Fields, remember, Pastor Fields gave us a chart one time of what the numbers meant. I don't know if I can find mine.
And I have a chart with that too, and I could bring that next week.
I have to smile because my post office box number is 3335, and I live in condo number 7.
No, that's so funny.
Yeah,
Serious.
yeah.
Just like that.
So again, this is an explanation of why there are 2.5 tribes on the east side of the Jordan and 9.5 on the west side, and it adds up to 12. And because one tribe has no land, so adds up to 12. Verse 5 was a great verse because anytime it says the people did as the Lord commanded, great verse. It's a good thing. Joshua is following the instructions left by Moses to a T. Good thing.
You know, it's interesting how many times it said no land was given to the Levites.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like, hey, remember, you don't get any land.
You don't
It's
get,
like,
but yours is
oh,
better.
it's-
Yeah. You don't
like,
get this,
there
but
was
you
some,
get...
but no, you don't get any.
You don't get this, but you get this. Yeah, over and over again. Well, because when they mention it, yeah, when it seems like whenever they mention about it, they say your inheritance is not this. Your inheritance is this instead. So you may not get the land, but you get to serve God in a special way. So maybe we ought to take the parsonage away from the pastor. I don't know. No.
Now think about what she said about those numbers. Our address is 3377 East.
And now that it was funny, we would have when I worked for the welfare department, case numbers would be assigned to people, and if someone got something that ended in 666, they always wanted it changed.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is not biblical numerology here. This is just a number. It was different. But
When I bought the house, I didn't even think about the numbers.
I just
But
never
I was
gave
sitting there on the sofa
Yeah,
one
just
day
now.
and I thought, boy, I live in number 7, and 7 is a complete number.
yeah, 7 is completeness.
and 30 is-
Okay, verses 6 through 9.
Then the people of Judah came to Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephron,
There's some names in here.
and Kenizzite said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, in Kadesh Barnea, concerning you and me. It was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him word again as it was in my heart. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, Surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God."
Okay, so remember Gilgal is like home base. That's where the tabernacle is. That's where they've left all the women and children. You're going to assume they're doing the splitting up the land there. So Caleb, we haven't seen him in a long time. But he's back. And he brings the tribe of Judah with him. He is a Judahite. He's been kind of behind the scenes this whole time.
Is he old also?
He is, we'll see, he's 80 years old at this point. So he's 10 to 15 years younger than Joshua. So he and Joshua, of course, were associated together because they were the two spies that came back with a good report 40 years earlier. Well, 47 years earlier. So he's taking his friend Joshua on a sentimental journey, saying, remember when we did this? And we wandered and we found these wonderful things, and we wanted to conquer the land and no one else did, and good memories for them, bad for everybody else. Think about it. He and Joshua have been wandering this wilderness with everybody else. They're the two oldest men, because everybody else, they would have been watching everybody else die along the way. But God rewarded them. They got to see the promised land. He was born in Egypt. So he was born a slave, but he died a hero. So again, he's from the tribe of Judah. And Judah is the tribe from which the Savior is going to come. You never see a negative comment about Caleb. Wouldn't that be nice to be written about, and no one can say a bad word about you? He was a man, so he must have had some imperfections, but people didn't see that. They saw the good in him. That's the way we should all be. Now the Kenizzites, it was kind of interesting. People had, all these commentaries had a lot of different things to say about him saying that he was a Kenizzite. We saw the Kenizzites back in Genesis 15, and they were a pagan nation. Some feel that maybe one of his ancestors came to Egypt and married a woman and from Judah, and so he kind of became a Judahite, but still had Kenizzite in his background. Others say it's because one of his ancestors is named Keniz. Don't know. But he may have some Gentile roots to him. There probably was a lot of intermarriage with some outsiders. One really great thing to notice is that last line. It says he fully or wholly followed the Lord. He's one of only 3 people in the Bible that it says that about, that wholly follows the Lord. It says that about Joshua back in Numbers 32 when it talks about him and Caleb. They're mentioned as both fully following the Lord. And then David in 1 Kings 11. So only Joshua, Caleb, and David has it ever said that they fully or wholly follow the Lord. Another great thing to be known for. And about Caleb, it was used 5 times. So he wholly followed the Lord. They talk about it 5 times in the Bible. What a man he is. And we don't get a lot of mention about him. But what's there is great. He's going to be the first one to receive land in the promised land. And that's appropriate.
And that's on the west side, right?
On the west side of the Jordan. Yeah. The tribes on the east side of the Jordan, they are not in the promised land.
Yeah, that's right, because they have
Yeah.
to be swept on the other side.
Yeah. So, and it's appropriate that the tribe of Judah, of which Caleb is part of,
But didn't they
an
ask
important-
Moses, the Reubenites and the Gadites, didn't they ask Moses for that land?
They did, but it's still, it's almost like they're settling, because they did not get land in the promised land. They got land outside the promised land. So this is the first land given in the promised land. Caleb points out to God what he had promised. Back in Deuteronomy 1, he says, you promised this to me. It's okay to recall promises to God and say, okay, when's this happening, God? You promised me. We still have to be patient because it's going to be in his timing. But Caleb, who wholly followed God, he reminded God, you owe this to me. And God didn't strike him dead. He gave it to him because he promised it to him. Okay, verse 10 through 12.
And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses, while Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, here I am this day, 85 years old. As yet, I am as strong this day as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and for coming in.
Verse 12, sorry.
Oh, 12.
Yeah.
Now, therefore, give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day. For you heard in that day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fortified. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said.
So this is a really great section. And so I was wrong. He was 85. So 85. And he's been through battles. He's been there fighting all along. And he knows he's only survived because God kept him alive. So again, he's one of the two oldest men in this nation. Joshua's a few years older, and then him. Everybody else died in the wilderness.
So when we get 85.
Yeah, he's still strong. That's pretty good. Yeah, 85.
Well, actually, in that time, 85 wasn't all that old.
Well, they're gonna. Joshua dies at 110.
Yeah.
So they aren't. That is old. What God said. God told us back about Joshua, who's 5 to 10 years older. You're old. So I think Caleb's considered old too. Yeah. Most people that age want to find a place to rest and relax, and put their feet up and retire, but not Caleb.
But Joshua about the same age. I mean,
No, he's 5 to 10 years younger. They're pretty close. They're the only ones that old, anywhere near that old anyway. But Caleb doesn't ask for an easy job.
No.
He wants to fight. He asked for the area where the Anakim were. Now the Anakim were the giants. 47 years ago, when the spies were sent into the land, that's where they ran into these giants, and the 10 spies said, "Oh, we can't do this," and ran back. And Joshua and Caleb saw those giants and said, "We got this." 47 years later, Caleb is saying, "I know we still got this. I want those people. You didn't let me face them 47 years ago. I want them now."
Spunky old guy.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. He didn't grow weaker. He grew stronger in the Lord. He didn't retire from nothing.
He said, the Lord helped me.
Yeah. Now, it may sound like he's bragging, but he knows where that strength came from.
Right.
Who gave him those victories. Now, have you ever run into, especially old men, that just love to talk about all their victories from the past, how great things were in the past?
Yes.
He's looking forward. He's thinking about what victories he's going to have. Those are nothing. Wait till I face those Anakim.
And he knows that his people behind him that are going to fight with him are young.
Yeah,
Yes.
They're all
he's
young
got
now,
he's got an army behind him.
Yeah, so he's got God
Yeah.
got him one step ahead anyway.
He's got young 20-year-olds.
Yeah. He does. And they probably would have been trained by him and his leaders.
The old
So
hymn.
when he asks for this land, the factors he lists, he says the hill country, the Anakites, cities, large and fortified. He uses all those phrases. Those are the exact same phrases that the 10 spies used when they said, we can't do this. Joshua's saying, they said, we can't do this. I can with God.
Caleb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Caleb, yeah. Sorry.
That reminds me when I had this friend that we were, the first time I climbed up Castle, she kept telling me the night before, I don't think you should do this, Dottie. I don't think you can climb that mountain. And I said, don't tell me I can't, because I have someone that. So, of course, it was a struggle to get, but when I got to the top of that mountain, I turned around at her. I said, see?
Yeah. Yeah. That probably motivated you to do it even more.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But she's not 85.
Yeah.
I mean, not 95.
You have something to prove.
So Caleb is seeing this as a challenge. And he ends it with a humble statement.
Yeah.
It's not a name it and claim it faith but it's a humble trust in God's will.
That's what he expects when you accomplish something. He wants to get all the glory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can bet Caleb's giving God all the glory for this. Okay, verse 13 through 15.
Caleb's request granted. Then Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. So Hebron has belonged to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, who was the greatest man among the Anakites. The allotment for the tribe of Judah, clan by clan.
Oh, that's so yours didn't say, and the land had rest from war. Okay, end of the chapter. So
But yeah, mine did.
Caleb goes to Joshua and says, this is what I want. And Joshua says, well, bless you. You get it. And he prays for God's blessing on what Caleb's going to do. Now, if only the rest of the nation would follow what Caleb did and was as faithful as him. But they're not. They're not going to. Caleb gets Hebron. Hebron is where Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, and Rebekah are all buried. Oh, Jacob and Leah. They're all buried there. He gets that land.
That's cool.
He gets the only piece of land that Abraham ever owned, that burial area. He gets the area where Abraham sat under oaks and rested. It was a beautiful area, had wonderful views, but it had these giants he was going to have to get rid of. But he's not afraid of that. It's about 3,000 feet above sea level, and it has plenty of water and rich soil. It's a good land inhabited by giants.
So you don't have Hebron here?
Hebron isn't on the map. It would be in southern Israel. And again, next week I'll have a map for you that has where everything, all the tribes split up.
I have a question real quick before we get into 15. Going back, where in 1 Kings did it mention David wholly followed the Lord?
Let me go back up to my note.
Sorry.
1 Kings 11.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the statement that and the land had rest from war, well, there's going to be a lot of fighting. So what do they mean by this?
Yeah, I was thinking.
There is no more national war. All the tribes fighting together to conquer the big cities. That's done. It is now time for tribal battles. So the war is over. It doesn't mean they get peace. I mean, we think at the end of a war, we got a peace treaty, everything's fine. No, this is the nation fighting together as a war. That's done. So now into Joshua 15, and this is where we are going to skip reading a lot because it's names. Okay, time to split up these tribes. We've already got Caleb, but now the rest of his tribe, the tribe of Judah, they are by far the largest tribe. And they are going to give the allotment tribe by tribe, and then according to their clans. So the tribe all together, and then we get a list of the family groups. So the tribe would be like the tribe of Judah, but then within the tribe of Judah, the clan of Joshua, or all the family groups within that.
We could, like a county, and then all the little cities.
Yeah. So first we're getting their border. They are getting, and I wish I had that map for you today. They're getting a big chunk of the southern part of the nation. And it seems like a really long, boring list, but not to the tribe of Judah. They're listening to every single word, paying a lot of attention. These are real places. When God promised a land to Abraham, he meant a real land, and this is it. So a few things about this. It stretches from the Dead Sea to the coast on the Mediterranean Sea. And when you look at a map of Israel, that seems huge, but it's what, 30 miles? That's how wide Israel is. But they get everything in between. Jerusalem is right on the border of what they get. It's on the border between Judah and Benjamin, and at times it goes back and forth between the two tribes. They have their enemies on the three sides. They get, on the east side, they got Moabites. On the west, they got the Philistines. They actually are given the land of the Philistines, Gaza. But that's the problem area. Yeah. And then on the south, they got the Edomites. So, this is the...
And they surround the tribe of Simeon.
Yeah, Simeon, yeah, we'll read about Simeon quite a bit later, but they surround the land of Simeon. And eventually Simeon just kind of gets enveloped into them. So this tribe, their descendants are going to be kings. David descends from them. They are going to need so much discipline. They're going to be constantly fighting because they got the Edomites and the Moabites and the Philistines right around them. They need to be strong.
Look what's going on today. Everything that's right around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a new thing. Not a new thing to Israel at all.
Yeah.
No.
It's been their history to be surrounded by enemies.
Can you answer a question for me? Now, the person who's in charge of them right now and is doing all the so-called leading of them, he is not their spiritual leader.
Now, in charge of what?
That not you.
Netanyahu.
He's not their spiritual leader. He's
They don't really have a spiritual
They really
leader.
don't. They don't have a temple. They don't have a high priest. And a lot of Jews are not truly practicing their religion. They're Jew by name.
Yeah.
So many.
Lots of them now turning to
But
Jesus.
but the Bible tells us that that's going to change. But it hasn't yet.
Yeah, hasn't
Right now it's political government.
Yeah.
That's
Look at how the Lord God helped them yesterday. I mean, protect them because all these missiles were sent to them, and
We've seen God protecting them in
yes.
miraculous ways.
I
God-
was
God has a
praying
plan.
so much yesterday for Israel. And
Yeah.
So we're just sitting back right now watching unfold what's said in here. It's unfolding in front of our eyes, actually, really.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
I have a neighbor who's Jewish, and we do dinners with them, you know, when they have certain practices and stuff. But I keep praying for him because he's not a Christian in
He's not
any way.
practicing.
No,
Yeah.
and I just pray for him that something would happen.
they are hard people, very hard.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's hard.
Okay.
You have to wait on God's timing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
And it will happen because he said it will.
right.
Okay, so this is the last section we're going to read, verse 13 through 19.
Okay. So Joshua 13 through 19, and
Yeah.
15.
13 through 19.
13. Okay. Wait,
We're in chapter 15,
okay,
and you're going to read 13 through 19.
that's where I was, I'm
Oh.
sorry. I know,
Yes.
right? Okay, now he gave Caleb the son of Jephunneh a portion among the sons of Judah, according to the command of the Lord to Joshua, namely Kiriath Arba, Arba being the father of Anak. I have in parentheses. That is Hebron. And Caleb drove out, and there were the three sons of Anak, Sheshai, Aham, and Talmai, the children of Anak. Then he went up from there against the inhabitants of Dibber. Now the name of Dibber formerly was Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, the one who attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give him Achsah, my daughter, as his wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, captured it. So he gave him Achsah, his daughter, as a wife. And it came about that when she came to him, she persuaded him to ask her father for a field. So she alighted from the donkey, and Caleb said to her, what do you want? Then she said, give me a blessing, since you have given me the land of Negev. Give me also springs of water. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs.
Okay,
Sorry
so
about that.
that-
I chopped
So
it
she
up.
married her cousin.
no,
Yeah.
it's actually it's his.
Brother,
It was the son of the brother of
Oh wait, yeah,
Caleb.
cousin,
cousin.
because it's Caleb's nephew steps up. So yeah,
That's
cousin.
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
It's her cousin.
It's okay today. In some states, California, you can marry your first cousin.
Come on.
In California, you can. I never.
It's California. Come on, you can do anything there.
So
California.
in those days,
California.
you could. We had marriages between brothers and sisters.
It was family.
Yeah,
But that
Well,
was to
Sarah-
inhabit,
Sarah was a half brother.
yeah. Sarah and Abraham were half brothers sisters.
Yeah.
They had the same
Sarah and Abraham.
father. Yeah,
But so it kept it in the family.
Yeah.
He said she's my sister when she wasn't gone.
yeah. So Caleb not only asked for the land, he fought for it. There are times we ask God to give us things, and we expect Him to just give it to us, but we have a part to play. It's like, I asked God to help me lose weight, but I got to stay away from the chocolate. I have my part to play. But Caleb did what he needed to do. He drives everybody out of his area. Now the Judahites, the whole tribe of Judah, they don't but he drove them out of his area. He's not only brave and courageous, he gives other people opportunities. He says, whoever conquers this, hey, you can marry my daughter. And that would be a good thing. Who cares what the daughter looks like? She would be wealthy. And you would be close to Caleb. So you wanted to do that. So nephew steps up, and we're not going to lose track of this guy. He is going to become the first judge of Israel. So you can bet he learned things from his uncle. He learned how to be a leader. So, gets the daughter. The daughter goes to her dad, and it says she got off her donkey. What it means is she rushed off her donkey. She suddenly got off it. She was determined. Almost like she forgot something, but determined to get something. And the dad says, it's not really, we don't really get the feeling of it, but he says, oh, what is it, baby?
What do you want?
Yeah, we see what do you want. It's more like, oh, baby, why are you here? And the Negev that he gives her, really nice to give her the Negev. It's a desert. He gives her a desert. Little value without water. So she says, yeah, can you give me some water? So she asks for springs, and he gives her all the springs, the upper springs, the lower springs. So but she has good land. It confuses me. Why would he give her that land? But okay, so the rest of the chapter. Verse 20 says, this is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Judah according to their clans. So this is splitting it up by family groups. Lots and lots of names. 112 cities on this list. We're going to see a lot of these cities in future scripture. Notice verse 47. They get Gaza. That's part of the land that they get. But there's giants there, those Philistines. And the Judahites don't manage to get them out, so they're going to be a problem for a long time. But that land was given to them by God.
Yeah. And why they now advise them that they pull out of Gaza?
They saw giants and walled cities.
Today's time.
Yeah.
They got Gaza back now.
Well, the Israelites kind of gave them that area to settle because they needed a place to settle.
And they're a very evil people. I mean,
They're taught to be evil.
they are taught
Children.
to hate the Jews.
Yeah.
From the time they're walking. They had that little kid on the news, and he was just a little kid like this, and they asked him, "What do you think about the Jews?" And he came out with this evil stuff that he'd been taught already.
So I want to get this last verse because that'll finish this chapter. 63, but the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the people of Judah, could not drive out. So the Jebusites dwell with the people of Judah at Jerusalem to this day, meaning when they wrote it. So they managed to control what they're supposed to control, but not Jerusalem. Jerusalem is tough to conquer. It was a city on a hill, fortified with walls. David will finally conquer it. So, and again, Judah kind of switches between control under Benjamin and under Judah, but it doesn't matter if you don't conquer it. So their most holy city today, they could not conquer back then. It's going to take a while. So that is,
And that was because God was not with them at that time? Because they were not doing what he was telling them?
we don't get the details of why, but typically when they don't conquer something is because they aren't doing something the way, because God said, go conquer it, and I'm with you.
So next
So-
time 16 chapter.
Yeah. And it'll be the same, it'll be mainly splitting up tribes, so we may get through a lot of chapters next week. So, okay. Any prayer requests?
Oh, you are still
Um,
on.
My daughter's had, her surgery got rescheduled. She's having surgery on Tuesday for a polyp in her sinus area.
I think I'm
She's anxious, but she knows it needs to get done.